Welcome to our deep dive today into Homer's The Iliad. Buckle up, because we're diving into a world of epic battles, clashing gods, and heroes wrestling with, well, fate, honor, and just what it means to be human.
What's interesting is that the Iliad, it's not just a war story, right? It's like a mirror reflecting this huge moment in history, the Bronze Age collapse.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Imagine this. Around 1200 BC, every grand palace in Greece, poof, gone, just destroyed.
Leading to, like you said, huge societal upheaval, a dark age.
Yeah. It's like the world Homer describes in the Iliad. It rises right from the ashes of this lost civilization.
It really makes you think, what if those echoes, right, of that collapse, that feeling of everything turning upside down, what if that's woven right into, like, the fabric of the poem?
Hmm.
Maybe that explains why, the characters are so obsessed with honor and duty and fate.
Absolutely. I mean, think about it. The Iliad doesn't give us all the answers about what happened during the Bronze Age
Right.
collapse, but it does give us like a really powerful snapshot of a world that's dealing with massive change and uncertainty. And you're right, the characters, they're fixated on honor and glory, and maybe that's their way of reacting to all the chaos and loss around them.
Mm.
Makes sense, right?
And on top of all that, the Iliad, originally it was an oral poem, like passed down through generations
Wow. Yeah.
before it was ever written down,
There.
which means who knows how many storytellers shaped it with their own memories, their own interpretations.
It's mind-blowing, really, the skill to memorize and then perform thousands of lines, and it raises all sorts of questions. Did the poem change over time? Did different storytellers add their own, I don't know, their own flavor to it, their own spin on the events and
Well,
characters?
and that leads right into, I think, what's often called the analyst versus Unitarian debate.
Right, yeah, right?
The analysts, they believe the Iliad is actually like a bunch of shorter poems all stitched together over time,
Okay.
maybe even by Athenian rulers like Pisistratos, who wanted to create this, I don't know, this national epic.
Yeah.
But then you have the Unitarians,
Right.
and they're arguing, no, 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 this is the work of a single, brilliant poet, Homer.
Well, both sides, they have some really strong arguments, and this isn't just some academic debate. It really gets to the core of how we even approach the Iliad.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's a compilation, does that somehow make it less powerful or insightful? Or does it actually add another layer of complexity showing how a culture's stories and values, how those things evolve over time?
Yeah, it's fascinating.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah.
And speaking of fascinating, we got to talk about Heinrich Schliemann.
Oh, yeah, this guy.
This guy was like, I don't know, like a real-life Indiana Jones.
Totally.
He used the Iliad like it was a treasure map
Yeah.
to find the ruins of Troy. I mean,
Yeah.
come on.
Schliemann, he was a controversial figure for sure.
Oh, yeah?
But what he found, it was groundbreaking. I mean, he dug up a city, right? With walls and palaces and treasures. And it looked like it matched up with the descriptions in the Iliad. It was like Homer's words were coming to life right there in front of him.
But there's a twist, right? Because some scholars, they weren't so sure if the Troy that Schliemann found, they weren't sure if it was really the Troy from Homer's epic.
Oh, right. Yeah.
They argued his methods were a bit, I don't know, rough.
Hmm.
That he maybe jumped to conclusions or even like destroyed some evidence in his rush to find what he was looking for.
Well, yeah, that's true. And it makes us think, how much can we trust archaeological evidence to, back up or contradict ancient texts? And how do we even tell the difference between myth and reality when we're dealing with stories that have been passed down for centuries?
Right. It's like trying to put together this giant ancient puzzle. And, some pieces are missing and other pieces, maybe they don't even belong.
Right, exactly.
But I mean, that's part of what makes the Iliad so
Let me
captivating.
back. It is. And at the heart of that puzzle, you've got these characters, all driven by a code of honor that feels so different from ours, and yet somehow familiar too.
Yeah.
The Iliad, it digs deep into these ancient Greek concepts like kudos, the glory you get from doing heroic things, timid, the respect and honor that others give you, and kleos, the fame that lives on even after you die.
It's like they're all chasing immortality, trying to leave their mark on the world when, life could be cut short at any moment.
Yeah.
And those ideals, they're the driving force behind every decision, every battle, every tragedy in the poem.
And then you have fate, Moira, in Greek.
Right.
The characters in the Iliad, they're constantly wrestling with their destinies. They know that their lives, their victories, their deaths, it's all part of this grand preordained plan.
So it makes you wonder, do they actually have any free will at all? Or are they just, playing out roles that the gods have written for them?
It's a great question. That tension between free will and fate, it's one of the most enduring themes in the Iliad. And honestly, it's something we still struggle with today, don't we? How much control do we really have over our own lives? How much of it is shaped by forces we just don't understand?
It's amazing how those questions, those ancient questions, they still resonate with us thousands of years later.
They do. And it's not just the big questions, you know? The Iliad gives us these really intimate glimpses into what war is like, what it feels like to be human in the midst of it all, the grief of losing people you love, the bonds between soldiers, the moments of doubt and fear that even the greatest heroes experience.
We forget sometimes that, the Iliad wasn't written for, like, scholars or philosophers.
No.
It was probably performed for an audience of warriors, men who lived by those values of honor and glory, men who knew firsthand the risks and the rewards of battle.
It's amazing to imagine Homer, holding his audience spellbound with these stories of clashing armies and gods intervening and these larger-than-life heroes like Achilles and Hector.
Yeah. So we've got this epic poem. It's a reflection of a lost world. It's got these characters driven by this code of honor that still speaks to us today. But we've barely scratched the surface. What are some of the key takeaways that you think we should keep in mind as we go deeper into the Iliad?
Well, first, always remember the historical context. The Bronze Age collapse, it created this world of uncertainty and upheaval. And that backdrop, it shapes everything, the characters' motivations, their anxieties, all of it.
So it's not just gods and heroes.
Right.
It's a society trying to figure out its place in a world that's changing all around them.
Exactly. Second, pay attention to those moments of human connection, the glimpses of vulnerability and compassion, that kind of stuff, even in the middle of all the brutality of war.
So like those moments, they remind us that even the biggest heroes are still human,
Yeah,
capable of incredible courage, but also capable of, heartbreaking loss.
yeah. And lastly, don't be afraid to question the characters, their choices, their motivations, their flaws. The Iliad is complex. It doesn't give you easy answers.
Right.
It makes you think critically about heroism, about the pull of glory, about the power of human emotions.
Lots to think about, lots to unpack. But for now, we'll leave you with that. We'll be back in the next part of our deep dive to explore specific passages from the Iliad and really get into the nitty-gritty of these characters and what makes them tick. Welcome back to our deep dive into the Iliad. All right, so we've set the stage, we've looked at the historical context. Now it's time to meet the stars of the show, right? The heroes, the gods, everyone caught in between.
Yeah, and where better to start than with, well, the most famous hero of them all, right? Achilles. This guy, a warrior, almost superhuman strength and skill, blessed by the gods, but, also cursed with a bit of a temper, shall we say.
Yeah, a little bit.
An unyielding thirst for glory.
Yeah, he's definitely a bit of a paradox, right? On the
Yeah.
one hand, legendary warrior, almost invincible on the battlefield, but then, throws these epic tantrums that almost cost the Achaeans the entire war. What's the deal with that?
Well, remember that scene when Agamemnon, the leader of the Achaean forces, he, insults Achilles, takes away his prize, Briseis?
Oh, yeah.
That's not just some petty squabble over a woman. It's a huge violation of Achilles' his honor and status.
So it's like a public slap in the face.
Right.
Humiliation that, undermines his whole identity as a warrior, as a hero.
Exactly. And for Achilles, that is just, unacceptable. He'd rather, sulk in his tent, even let his comrades die, than just sit there and take that kind of blow to his pride. He has this burning need to prove himself, to earn that kudos, the kleos, the things that will make him immortal.
But I feel like there's something deeper going on with Achilles' rage, too, right? He's wrestling with these big existential questions.
Yeah, you're right. Achilles, he knows he's fated to die young. Either nobody remembers him or he goes out in a blaze of glory. And he chooses glory, even if it means, violence and revenge. His rage, it's fueled by this kind of desperate defiance against the very fate he can't escape.
Yeah, it's like he's saying, if I'm going down, I'm taking everyone with me.
Yeah.
And they'll remember my name.
Exactly. And this brings us to another really interesting part of the Iliad, the whole idea of individual glory versus, the needs of the community. Achilles, he puts his own personal honor above the well-being of his fellow Achaeans. He's willing to sacrifice their lives to basically soothe his own hurt pride.
It really makes you question his heroism, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, is he really a hero if he's so okay with letting others suffer for his own sake? It's a very different idea of heroism than what we might have today.
It is,
So-
but remember, the Iliad, it's reflecting the values of a warrior culture,
Right.
where individual prowess and reputation, those were everything.
Hmm.
In that context, what Achilles does, yeah, it's destructive, but it kind of makes sense.
Hmm. Okay, so let's switch gears a bit. Talk about, well, the other side of this epic duel.
Mm-hmm.
Hector, the Trojan prince. He's not driven by that same, thirst for glory that Achilles is.
Mhm.
He's fighting to protect his city, his family, his whole way of life. What is it about him that makes him such a compelling character?
Well, I think Hector, he embodies a different kind of heroism. One that's all about duty, responsibility, love. Yeah, he's a skilled warrior, no doubt.
Mhm.
But he doesn't, relish the fight the way Achilles does. He fights because he has to, because it's, the honorable thing to do.
And you really see that humanity, that sense of duty, that compassion, and the way he interacts with his family.
Mm-hmm.
Especially in that, oh man, that heartbreaking scene where he says goodbye to his wife, Andromache, and their baby son.
Oh, yeah.
That scene, it's powerful because it reminds us what war really costs.
Yeah.
Hector, he knows he's probably going to die,
Yeah.
and he's terrified, not for himself, but for his wife and child, for the future of Troy.
It's so interesting to contrast that scene with, Achilles back in his tent sulking.
Right?
Both heroes are facing death.
But their motivations, their fears are completely different.
Exactly. And even though they're so different, you get this sense of mutual respect between Hector and Achilles.
Hmm.
Maybe even admiration. They see each other's courage and skill, even as they're, fighting on opposite sides of this brutal war.
Yeah, it's like they're two sides of the same coin, each showing a different face of heroism. And speaking of different sides, we can't forget about, well, the gods.
The gods,
Right.
constantly meddling in human affairs. Playing favorites, using the Trojan War like it's their own personal chessboard.
Yeah, the gods, they add a whole other layer of complexity to the Iliad. They're not just watching from afar. They're right there in the mix, manipulating events,
Yeah.
whispering in heroes' ears, even battling each other.
It makes you wonder, do the humans have any say in what happens to them at all? Or are they just pawns in the gods' games?
That's a question that's been around for centuries.
Yeah.
I mean, on the one hand, the characters in the Iliad, they seem to be driven by their own desires, their own choices.
But then you see the gods, pulling strings, changing the course of events. It makes you wonder, how much free will does anyone really have?
Like Zeus, for example.
Yeah,
He's supposed to be, king of the gods, most powerful being in the universe.
right.
But even he's bound by fate, by these ancient prophecies that dictate how the war is going to unfold. And he's always getting swayed by the other gods, like Hera, who hates the Trojans,
Mhm.
and Athena, who's on the Achaean side.
Yeah, it's like even the gods are stuck in this web of fate, this cosmic drama where everyone has a role to play, even if they don't fully understand it.
Yeah, it's mind-boggling, really.
Yeah.
But we can't forget about the mortals, who are caught in the middle of all this divine power struggle.
Yeah.
What about, I don't know, the women, the children, the everyday people whose lives are turned upside down by this war?
That's something that often gets overlooked in the Iliad.
Yeah.
But it's so important to understanding the full impact of the tragedy. Remember Andromache's lament for Hector? Her fear for her son's future. Or Priam, the king of Troy, risking his own life just to beg Achilles for his son's body.
Yeah. Those moments are so powerful
Yeah.
because they remind us that war, it's not just about heroes and battles and glory. It's about families being torn apart, communities shattered. It's about the ripple effects of violence that reach far beyond the battlefield.
Exactly. And the Iliad, in its unflinching portrayal of both the grandeur and the horror of war, it makes us confront the human cost, the sacrifices, the lives that are forever changed by conflict.
Wow, so we've really journeyed deep into the Iliad, haven't we? I mean, epic battles, those complex ancient Greek values, and, well, just the weight of fate hanging over everyone, heroes and everyday folks alike. But as we wrap up this deep dive, I'm left wondering, what's it all mean? Why does this story, thousands of years old, why does it still hit us so hard today?
That's the big question, isn't it? And I think maybe the answer is in how the Iliad digs into what it means to be human.
Mhm.
It tackles these themes that are honestly as relevant today as they were back then. Heroism, the pull of glory, that struggle with fate, how rage can destroy, and those bonds of love and family that just endures.
And it's so interesting to see how those themes play out in the characters' lives. You've got Achilles consumed by glory and revenge, ends up on this path that, yeah, it brings him triumph, but it also brings him incredible loss.
Yeah.
And then there's Hector, bound by duty and love for his family. He faces his, well, inevitable fate with real courage and grace. Makes you think, what does it even mean to be a hero?
It really does. Because the Iliad doesn't give you easy answers. It doesn't give you simple heroes. It shows you a world where even the greatest warriors, they mess up, where good intentions can lead to, well, to terrible things, and where even the gods themselves, they're caught in this web of fate.
And what really strikes me is how Homer lets us see both sides of the fight. You can empathize with characters who have, totally different values and who make choices that maybe you question.
Yeah.
Maybe you even, I don't know, condemn. It's like he's saying, hey, there's no easy answers, no clear right or wrong, just people, trying to figure things out in a world that's full of beauty and awfulness at the same time.
That's it, that complexity, that willingness to look at the gray areas of being human. That's what makes the Iliad so much more than just a war story.
Yeah.
It's a reflection on, well, on the human condition, on those universal struggles we all face. Love, loss, ambition, and just dealing with the fact that, we're all going to die someday.
And you can't forget the power of Homer's storytelling, how he brings these characters to life. You see their passions, their flaws, those moments of, I don't know, incredible strength and then heartbreaking vulnerability. It's like you can hear the clash of swords, feel that battlefield dust, and the raw emotion of those epic showdowns.
Can you imagine those, ancient listeners huddled around a fire, just captivated by the bard's voice as he tells these tales of gods and heroes, battles won and lost, love and loss? It must have been an incredible experience.
It's like Homer is inviting us to join them, to step back in time and experience these stories. And in doing that, he connects us to something bigger, a shared human experience that goes beyond time and culture.
And what's really amazing is how those old stories, they still speak to us now. We might not be living in a world of swords and chariots, but we're still facing those same basic challenges. Figuring out who we are, dealing with loss and uncertainty, trying to find meaning in a world that often feels, well, chaotic and unfair.
So as we finish our deep dive into the Iliad, we want to encourage you to keep those timeless themes in mind. Look for those echoes of those ancient struggles in your own life, in the choices you make, in the relationships you build, in how you choose to leave your mark on the world.
And if you're looking for a good way to explore the Iliad on your own, I'd recommend Barry Powell's translation. It really captures the beauty and power of Homer's language.
Thanks for joining us on this journey. We hope you've enjoyed our deep dive into the Iliad. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep searching for those truths that connect us all.